The silly moments, the proud moments, even the hard moments. They're why Wellmark Blue Cross and Blue Shield is committed to making healthcare better, more affordable, with more choices for care, and peace of mind through it all. Because Blue is here for you.
Welcome to the Made in Iowa podcast presented by Wellmark Blue Cross and Blue Shield. I'm your host, Leisa Fox, and in the studio today, I've got Tom West. Tom is with Makusafe, and their name says it all. They are making companies safe all across the United States and on 4 continents. I hope you enjoy this conversation as much as I did. Welcome to the Made in Iowa podcast. I'm Leisa Fox, and I am in the studio with Tom West. Tom and I have known each other for a long time, and he is the vice president and global practice leader for a company called Makusafe. If you've lived in the Des Moines area or in Iowa for any length of time, you know Gabe Glynn, the founder of Makusafe. Tom, I've been hearing about your products and the results of your products for years, but I don't know what they are. And so I'm thrilled to have you in the studio to explain what you do and how you are helping the safety journey and productivity journey for so many manufacturers and other industries across the state. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Good to see you. As always, good to be here with you.
Now, when I met Gabe, he was in marketing and hadn't even thought of Makusafe yet. You shared before we turned on the mics the story about the impetus of Makusafe, and I would love for you to share that with the audience.
Yeah, sure. That's a funny story, which has its origins many, many years ago. I've lived in Des Moines for decades now. I was a college management professor at DMAC for 29 and a half years. And maybe 15 or so years ago, while I was teaching night classes, I had a guy who would show up a little tired with his first child and working a couple of jobs in my night class. But within 5 minutes or so, he's always ready to argue what we talked about last week.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah. And, the rest of the students might roll their eyes because, these two.
Here he goes again.
Yeah, these two are going to go at it again. But Gabe and I got to be friends. He was an A student, great student, unique thinker. During that time, he showed me his first business plan for a company that I helped him with. And we remained friends, and I helped him, I think, with 4 or 5 companies along the way. He had successful entrepreneurial exits to those businesses. And as it relates to Makusafe, after he had sold a software company and was doing his own podcast, he had time one day to go to Cedar Rapids, visit his dad, and try to take him to lunch. And it turned out to be not a great day for Dad, who was a safety leader at a company where he was responsible for 1,800 or so employees. Big facility, and a regulatory agency happened to be there conducting an audit.
That's always a fun time.
Yeah, not a good day for Dad. Conducting an audit for a hearing loss claim.
So it was a bad day to have lunch with Dad.
Yeah, but Gabriel, being the guy he's always been, started to ask some really, really good questions about why we wait for people to get injured, why we wait for incidents and injuries and claims to occur before we start investigating what root causes could be and where the potential for incidents lies, right? How do we prevent and predict accidents and injuries before people get hurt? And being in Iowa, we can all relate to the idea that we've gotten really good in the past couple of years of being able to give people a week's notice to when conditions may be, becoming favorable for a tornado on Friday or Saturday afternoon, right? Rather than a 2-hour notice.
Right.
Now we're using data and modeling to predict and give warnings and keep people safe. Why can't we do the same thing for industrial workers when Every day around the world, more than 1,000 people die on the job and don't go home to their families. More than 5,000 globally every day die as a result of work-related conditions, work-related causes. Here in the United States, it's about 5,000 people who don't go home every year from work.
Wow.
And even in the state of Iowa, it's 34, 35, 36 on an annual basis.
Tom, let's talk about the industries that your product works best in.
Yeah. So any industrial environments, quite honestly, from construction to all types of manufacturing. Gosh, we've been in steel foundries that it's like working in a volcano.
Yeah.
To light assembly, even millwork, food manufacturing, food processing, distribution, logistics, warehousing, and we've extended those capabilities to even be more applicable today to niches within those industries or more types of job roles.
Let's get into the nitty gritty.
Sure.
I see you've got a fancy armband on.
My fashion accessory.
Your fashion accessory. I want you to walk me through the process that you go through with your clients. Safety only works, preventative safety only works if you're collecting the right data.
Yeah. Yeah.
And from what I understand you're doing is you are getting that data from your clients in real time.
Yeah.
How does it work, Tom?
Sure. Since you bring up data, let's talk about this quickly and lay a solid foundation, right? Traditionally, historically, the world of safety, EHS, Environment, Health, and Safety, or Occupational Health and Safety, OHS, has been reliant and revolved around lagging indicators, which really means outcomes. How many people got hurt?
Right.
How many things do we have to report and record for OSHA? Or, the safety world has different metrics like DART, D-A-R-T, which really means days away, restricted, and transferred. How many days was it before somebody could return to their normal job because they got hurt and they had to be on restricted duty, right? We're undergoing, and leading organizations are very focused on this shift from lagging indicators, things that have already happened, outcomes, to instead, what are the leading indicators that can help us predict and prevent things before they happen? How do we optimize our factories and ensure that people are safe? How do we optimize work for maximum efficiency? How do we reduce incidents by re-engineering work so that we keep people safe and maximize our outputs? So, in the world of safety, you could think of this as, not being content to just get a check because something happened from the insurance company to repair and replace something, but instead, how do we predict and prevent it from happening in the first place?
Wow.
Right? There's this shift. So the Make You Safe device on my arm is a matchbox sized, thumb sized, and this contains the widest array of IoT-enabled sensors available.
Internet of Things.
Yeah, available in the marketplace.
Okay.
And it's very, very unique. There's nobody who really does exactly what we do. In fact, I can put one on you if you like.
Awesome. And you talked a little bit about the enterprise hardware and software. So what part of this do you produce?
Yeah, both. Actually, we're a hardware and a software company.
Okay.
Back to the device itself, which we call the Ally. The sensors on board cover a wide spectrum of things. I like to say in summary fashion, we're doing really four things. One is monitoring environmental conditions which are ever changing around a worker, right?
Okay.
That sounds simple, And something like ambient temperature and ambient humidity sounds really, really simple. Like nobody's doing that already. But realize now that if we put those two things together, we can calculate a real-time heat index for every individual worker, regardless of where they are.
Wow.
Somebody who's working behind a piece of hot, heavy machinery versus somebody who's walking around. And that's very, very different from a wall-mounted thermometer that says it's 72 degrees all the time, right? So that can be game-changing. We're a full noise dosimeter, which is monitoring sound levels in multiple octaves so that we can calculate the real-time sound exposure for every worker and make sure that they're not approaching conditions that would cause hearing loss or fatigue, right? We're monitoring air quality. We're even looking at things like low light or no light levels. So that's all the environmental data, which is typically the realm of an entire profession called industrial hygienists.
Right.
We couple that with human movement and motion data, which is the realm of ergonomists. We started down this path wanting to know, what does a slip look like? Is that different from a trip?
This can pick up a slip.
Oh, yeah. Even when you may not realize that you've slipped yourself.
How does it do it?
And if you follow the logic, we can see areas of a factory where 5 or 6 people have slipped between 8 and 10 this morning and draw that attention to a safety leader or to an operations manager, team leader, so that they can go investigate before the 7th or 8th person
So it plots
falls.
Where the slips are occurring too?
Yeah, we identify location of where those things are happening. So back to human movement and motion, we started with slips, trips, and falls, but now, of course, we can see much more than that. Repetitive motion signatures, we can see pushing and pulling and twisting and turning. And we've started to aggregate that data so that we can demonstrate what we call physicality, the amount of effort being expended over time to do work. So imagine, even on your phone, being able to click and stack rank workers in a warehouse, in a department. Why is it that Leisa is at the top of the list in terms of effort being expended if everybody's supposed to be doing the same job with the same tools?
Yeah.
Right? And why is it that some people are working very smooth with no pronounced forceful or accelerated or repetitive movement? And what we often find is, you know what, Lisa's a little bit shorter than everybody else in the department. If we could just elevate her workstation or the materials that she's bending over to reach every day, we can completely alleviate the possibility for strain and exertion for shoulders and backs and knees to be injured.
And Tom, I sold workers' compensation insurance for years. That soft tissue damage and treatment is expensive.
Yeah.
And a lot of times you can't get your employees back to where they were before.
That's right.
So you're saying that this prevents back injuries, shoulder injuries from repetitive motion?
Not a magic bullet, it's a tool. But we're providing data that has significant predictive value in understanding where risks and hazards lie for organizations and for leaders that are interested in mitigating those risks, solving those problems before incidents occur. Yeah. And, you know, since you mentioned you were in the work comp space, you're probably familiar with, because they've been doing it for years, Liberty Mutual puts out every year a big report on the top 10 causes of work comp claims in the United States every year. I can tell you, and you could probably attest, the list never changes. Slips, trips, and falls are still at the top.
Yep.
Right? If you look at that list of top 10, I think that constitutes something like $58 billion in claims every year in the U.S. alone. The top 5, which doesn't include anything happening on the roadway with motor vehicles, constitutes something like almost $40 billion. It's the vast majority. And those are things, we're talking about the shift from lagging indicators to leading indicators. Human movement and motion is an area, ergonomics is an area where we can see real-time leading indicators that will lend to heightened risk and people getting injured on the job ultimately. You've probably heard the term MSD, musculoskeletal disorders, right? Those are people who have lifelong debilitating, life-affecting injuries and long tail work comp claims, right, that go on for years.
Yep.
Yeah, we can prevent and predict those kinds of things from occurring in the workplace today.
All right. I have dealt with enough manufacturers who love data to know if you are so hyper-focused on data and get in it so deep, you can't see the forest for the trees. I've also seen the opposite, where you're too high and you're not seeing things clearly because you're not in the weeds enough. Talk about the dashboard. So we've talked about the hardware and we've talked about the data that you're collecting. What does the safety director or the manager of a department see as a result of the data that you're collecting?
Sure. Generally speaking, first of all, there's a difference between data and information or insights, right? So data is voluminous and usually exists in silos and is overwhelming. We all deal with way too much of it these days. Meaningful data turned into what we call safety or risk intelligence, right? Meaningful information should be easy to use. In fact, I was telling you earlier, I wrote an article a while ago talking about the characteristics of useful leading indicator data and came up with this acronym TRUE, true. Leading indicators should be true, right? The T is for timely. In fact, there's nothing better than real time. If you can get real time data to stuff that matters, that's what we all want to know. Right. The R is relevant to keeping people safe right now. I don't need to know everything, but I need to know that if I'm a safety leader. The U is useful, immediately actionable, and these are things that probably don't exist in other systems, right? So just hiring a data scientist in our realm to mine data from all the stuff that's happened over the years isn't going to help. This can be immediately actionable. And then last, I say E squared, is easy and economical. It doesn't need to be hard. In fact, we can usually be up and running and gathering data within a couple of hours at a client site.
Wow. Millions
of square feet of industrial facility. And that includes orientation for the workers, right? And it can be economical. We've engineered a very unique solution, which really is on par with what it costs to outfit your workers with gloves. So it doesn't need to be terribly expensive.
Awesome. All right. So they've got the dashboard. You leave their premise. They've got their armbands.
Yeah.
Now go be safe.
Yeah.
How you talked about they're actionable. The data that you're giving them is actionable. Do you help with that process as well?
Yeah, we do. If you don't mind, let me back up just a step, right? The Make You Safe Ally device that you're wearing, and probably forgot you had on your arm by now, it really does 4 things. We talked about 2 of them, right? Environmental data, ergonomic data. Number 3 is location data about things that are occurring and where they're occurring. You could think of this like dropping pins on a Google map, right?
Yep.
Over the course of a few hours, you probably get a path, a trend, a pattern begins to emerge, where it's occurring, who's involved, what they're experiencing. And we do an awful lot with space and proximity, which we can talk about later. Number 4, though, may be the simplest, but my favorite thing to talk about. Any worker can push a button on the device and speak into the device without having to stop their work, and via voice report things to leadership that they may want to know, what they're
Is
experiencing.
a frayed cord,
Yeah.
whatever.
Exactly. In the safety world, those are called near misses or good catches, and they're a gold mine, right? When I'm giving speeches, I often ask, how many of you believe near misses and good catches are important and meaningful? Everybody's hand goes up. All right, leave your hand up if you get as many as you'd like. Do people tell you about all the things that you believe are happening? No, it's a fraction. So,
And Tom, I forget, like right now, I couldn't tell you what I had for dinner last night. Like if I don't capture it immediately, it didn't happen.
yeah. So capturing it via voice, right?
Brilliant.
Facilitating communication from the front lines to leadership in real time, capturing it in native language, because safety leaders, even on a phone, are going to get a transcription or a translation along with an audio file.
So it automatically translates
Yeah.
in how many different languages?
Yeah. Right now, we're very client driven. So we've been in facilities where, workers speak 23 different languages, and I know we're doing Spanish and a few others. So,
Wow.
and more. I mean, so we're gathering that data and we're sending it in real time to a software platform that we call Make You Smart. And Make You Smart really is a tool, a data analytics tool that makes it very easy to visualize what's going on with my team right now. Or if I'm a site leader, what's going on in my facility right now? If I'm at a corporate level, I can see multiple sites against one another and what's going on in those facilities. And think about, the impact of new KPIs, right? If all we used to measure and if all anybody ever heard about was outcomes, things that went wrong,
Right.
the difference today is that we can talk about the number of things that were detected and what we're doing to fix them over the course of the last couple of weeks,
Wow.
right? How many indicators have been detected? What corrective actions have we implemented? And what have been the results of that? So a complete shift, again, toward more meaningful metrics that can help keep people safe and optimize productivity.
For a period of time, you mentioned before we came on air, you were restricted to one site.
Yeah.
You've got something brewing and you're rolling out a new version of your product that allows you to take this with you really anywhere, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Makusafe is a hardware and software company, and we provide that as a service. So everything bundled as a service on an annual license to clients. That core of what our really talented team of hardware and software engineers has built is so robust. In that world, we say tech stack, right? Our tech stack is so well designed and so unique that we just keep extending the capability of additional things that it can do. So less than a year ago, we released the ability for the Makusafe Ally to be used in forklift safety applications. Right. We have the ability to detect pedestrians around a forklift that the operator may not be able to see because they're behind racks or they're behind the
blind
the
corners.
Truck. Right.
Yep.
Happens all the time. It's a big area of concern. Yep. So now in real time, we can visualize for the forklift operator with a simple, non-offensive screen that's already in their forklift.
You're kidding me.
The density of pedestrian traffic around them that often is invisible. And the further implications are over time, we're gathering volumes of data that can now be sliced and diced and studied. So a great story is our first client to use this when it was in beta has fleets of fork trucks roaming around high volume areas with hundreds of employees. We were able to gather data that within the first 6 months helped them reduce forklift pedestrian interactions by 86%. So when you think about, again, that shift, right, we're re-engineering work to eliminate risk rather than just asking people to be careful or wear PPE, right?
Wow.
And the way that they did that was understanding congestion patterns, choke points, high volume periods of the day, reassigning the most experienced drivers with the highest risk areas. That really has been a dramatic thing. The one you were alluding to is our most recent development. We sort of were focused on where most workers exist, which was fixed workplaces, right? Workers that go to a facility or a factory, start their day in there, start their shift there, end their shift there. But our clients really have driven these changes and this innovation. Now we've engineered something that sounds terribly simple, but the ability for a worker who's remote, a field worker, route driver, even fleet services folks who never come home to a facility to pair the wearable device with their company-issued mobile device and send data in real time through cellular networks. And at the end of the day, they've got a remote charger that allows them to plug that into their F-150, and they never have to go to a facility. So it just extends the versatility of the solution that we already have.
I can see you were talking about workflow and congestion areas. Yes, that is super helpful with safety. I can see where the data that you're collecting can also be translated into productivity. Have you done work with your customers on their productivity?
Oh, sure. Absolutely. I mean, if you think about, again, the sensors that I was describing that exist on our device, for starters, all of those experiences or exposures have impact on worker fatigue and can impact productivity, right? When we're not monitoring the worker at all. We're not continuously tracking people. So there's no button I can push to find out exactly where Leisa is right now in most instances. But we've realized, because of client requests, that there are some in industry that want to know when people enter and exit certain zones, right? The biggest use case of that I can think of was a client who explained, we're constantly pulling our labor resources from one production line to another.
Right.
And we don't often know where they are or how much time they've spent there. So what we've been able to do is just now, since we've got technology on the arm of every worker, we can tap into other connected factory systems and equipment and recognize worker presence.
Wow.
Right? So entry and exit points or restricted areas, or, detecting that Leisa is walking up to a laser cutting table and check the cloud to make sure that Lisa's credentials allow her to turn that machine on.
Wow.
The age-old photo, shows my age actually, that I use in presentations all the time, is Lucy and Ethel in the chocolate factory.
I just watched that bit last week.
Do you know when that was recorded?
I don't want to.
I looked it up because I use it so much. 1956.
I was going to say 55, so I was not far off.
So if you've never seen it, Lucy and Ethel go to work in a chocolate factory wrapping chocolates. The production line takes on a life of its own, speeds out of control, and they can't keep up. They start eating chocolates as fast as they can.
Putting it in their bra.
Right.
Yeah, it's cute.
When you think about it in the context that I use it, does that create an unsafe situation?
For sure.
Absolutely. Do you think that happens today? Happens all the time.
Yep.
Right? Imagine a smart factory or an advanced manufacturing organization who has the ability to speed up and slow down production based on the number of workers that are present, especially when people are moving from line to line. How do we optimize productivity? And at the same time, I often get out my soapbox and make this statement too. Safety and productivity and efficiency, quality cannot afford to be siloed concerns any longer.
Amen.
They're not even interrelated. They're interdependent.
Yeah, they coexist completely.
So you were asking earlier about organizations with too much data, right? We've been collecting data from things for an awful long time. Is it meaningful? Is it actionable? Is it useful? And the missing link in Industry 4.0 in these automated environments, these smart factories, really has been data about human interaction with things. So we don't need to track people continuously because nobody wants to wear that device. Right. But instead, if we can show what they're working with, when they're working with it, how they're working, and all of the data about experiences and exposures, we can re-engineer work to keep it safe rather than trying to change the worker, targeting them as the source of the problem.
We'll get back to Tom in a moment, but now experts from Wellmark Blue Cross and Blue Shield, our Made in Iowa presenting sponsor, break down top health concerns for employers. Today, Dr. Matthew Stanley, Senior Director of Behavioral Health, shares how Wellmark is prioritizing mental health and the support available to members.
One of the things we're committed to at Wellmark is just make sure that our members can get the right care at the right place at the right time. And with the trends we've seen, the growing need for mental health, behavioral health care, we know that access can become more challenging. So one of the things we have been doing is trying to improve the number of providers that we have so that members have easier access. And we've had tremendous success in that. From 2022 to 2025, we increased the number of licensed behavioral health care providers by more than 50%. More than that, we have also been looking at, our geographic footprint. So we have some very rural areas. So we know that travel and time and just access to so many providers is difficult in those areas. One of the solutions to address that is virtual care providers. So in mental health, we've been looking very particularly at high quality virtual providers, especially in some of the areas that we know are difficult, like child and adolescent, or a great example is eating disorders. Very hard to find programs and providers anywhere outside of a relatively large urban area. And then we've enhanced our website a great deal. Not only can you get in there and search for a provider that's in your network, but we've added some tools like screening for anxiety and depression. So if you're wondering, gosh, I've not been feeling well, or people have been concerned about me, that screen, although it won't diagnose you, but it can confirm or alleviate your concerns about, maybe I do need to seek care. So we've enhanced that website with tools, education, resources, and then the ability to get to a provider.
Thanks for listening. Want to learn more? Visit wellmark.com/made in Iowa. Wellmark is an Iowa leader in group health insurance coverage. Wellmark Blue Cross and Blue Shield is an independent licensee of the Blue Cross and Blue Shield Association. Now, back to the show. All right, we've been talking in generalities fairly nebulously. I would like to put a practical application of where we have used your device in a workforce, how they have gotten the data, made changes, and how that impacted the workforce.
Yeah, sure. So we've got plenty of clients here in our own backyard in Iowa, in the Midwest, clients, I think, in about half of U.S. states. I'm proud to be able to say that we're working around the world now, multiple continents. We've got client organizations on. One of the stories I'm most proud of to be able to tell, and again, we provide a tool. It's really the organization and their leaders.
It's how they
use it and what they do with it. But we've gotten an awful lot of traction in warehousing and distribution and logistics, food and beverage warehousing, distribution.
There's so much repetitive movement.
Yeah, if you think about those jobs, those are manual material handling roles, right? So moving. In fact, I was just talking with a client today and asked him, what's your volume like? How do you measure the volume? These guys measure everything.
Right.
And he said, my site does about 20 million cases a year. I was like, that's your state? No, that's just the site. We've got multiple sites around the state. So imagine that. And those are all people pick, pack, ship, right? Palletize, move things onto trucks, off of trucks. And in those environments, it's very common. The single greatest concern that they have and the single biggest injury type is what we were talking about earlier, strain and exertion in backs and shoulders. And, there are all kinds of variations in that data. It's new workers who are trying to, work fast to meet production expectations. Or, it's the constraints of the day. It might be that a machine is down, might be that we're short-staffed today, right? So in these types of organizations now, multiple clients have been able to reduce those injuries in these environments to zero.
Wow.
For multiple years in a row, right? We often say that we see within 12 months a 50 to 90% reduction in incidents and accidents and claims, frequency and severity. But these organizations have truly gotten to zero and been able to sustain that. There are plenty of organizations, and by the way, that, should be followed up with, they've found, again, because they measure everything, that by not breaking people's bodies and not allowing them to work, wear themselves out, coaching them on working smooth and efficiently instead of hard and high physicality, they've been able to increase productivity by an average of 6% per site.
Wow.
That's millions of dollars going directly to the top line and all kinds of losses avoided that impact the bottom line.
So we talk about the data that you get and applying strategies to impact that data. Do you find that you are most successful when leadership drives this initiative?
Yeah, that's a great question. I still hold out hope that one day we'll be ubiquitous and everybody will use us. But the immediate perception is, wearable, that's going to be hard. Or my people won't want to wear that. Or even when introducing it, right? People think, this is just Big Brother. The company's watching out for me. So our, best fit clients are organizations with strong leadership, right? That have the ability to influence people to follow, and a strong culture. And we partner with our client organizations to help them communicate in 5 minutes. I can tell you what it does and what it intentionally does not do. But we need leaders to be able to share with people the data. Here's the data we're seeing in your department, and here's what we're doing about it. And by the way, thank you for pushing that button and telling me what you thought was important. I heard you. Here's what we're doing about that. If we can just do that, it's not rocket science. I taught college management for 30 years, and my entire life's work has really been around leadership development and supervisory management. The single greatest thing that I ever learned that revolutionized my life was the 1 minute manager. Small conversations, saying thank you, being specific, and telling people why things are important are really where the rubber meets the road.
True.
If we have organizations who don't have an appetite for data, don't have the willingness to go do something and the desire to be proactive, but instead they're struggling with compliance, they're unfortunately not ready for us yet.
Right.
It takes, I won't even say, a heavy lift. It's not. we have streamlined what we do so effectively to make it easy to implement and partner with our clients to implement it well. But there has to be intent, right? They have to intentionally inspire followers to be willing to wear the device. If it sits on a wall and doesn't do anybody any good, or sits, in a toolbox and it isn't being worn, then it's not collecting data, and unfortunately won't be successful.
And I'm going to end with the ultimate determiner of value, and that is ROI. Mm-hmm. I would imagine you pretty quickly see a return on your investment in these wearable devices.
Yeah. We've even had Iowa companies whose work comp insurer has sponsored or subsidized pilots so that they can get started. And one of the benefits of founding a company here in Iowa,
we've got a little insurance here.
Surrounded by insurance companies. So, EMC being our flagship, investor for a long number of years.
Amazing company.
Yeah. And they really live that, innovative spirit that wants to get to more predict and prevent.
Mm-hmm. And root cause.
Sure. Sponsoring pilots, wanting to engage with their policyholders to help them use the data. But even in cases where, Iowa companies have had a pilot sponsored, they've been able to reduce their work comp premiums by 50, 60% in 24 months, which is unheard of, right? So the ROI potential is huge. We stopped counting at 1,000% because we didn't want to put any more in writing. Just nobody would believe it. But, it costs us tens of dollars per month per employee for Makusafe as a solution. When you think about loss avoidance, work comp claims reduction, increases in productivity and efficiency, the top and bottom line potential gains for an organization that is data-minded and well-led far outweighs the cost of what we're doing. We're more than revenue neutral.
And I'm going to go a step further, and I'm going to say as a retention tool. Mm-hmm. So you go to exertion levels, right? If I am exerting myself way beyond what my peers are doing, mm-hmm. The fact that my employer noticed, B, the fact that they're willing to do something about it to make my time at work more pleasant.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Two things I'll say about that. One of the most fun projects that I've gotten to work on over the last decade at Makusafe was when we had a little bit of a budget to send a camera crew out to a few of our clients and let them shoot the frontline workers wearing Makusafe, the type of work that they're engaged in, and hear really those unscripted testimonials from the workers. And there's one on our website where a worker says, I've worked here for a lot of years and I was beginning to think I couldn't work here anymore. And without telling anybody into a microphone, he said, I've had 3 shoulder surgeries now. And with the data they're collecting, it's helped me understand how to work more smoothly so that I can go home and garden and play with my grandkids after work.
Well, and Tom, you look at the silver tsunami that is happening and all of, the folks our age that are coming up on retirement age mm-hmm. here in the next 5 to 10 years, that is a lot of institutional knowledge. That's a lot of experience that is walking out the door maybe sooner than they have to. Mm-hmm. And I talk all the time, if we can keep our seniors engaged in the workforce longer, the ability to transfer that knowledge to the next generation, mm-hmm. share the work ethic, because I think we can say confidently that these upcoming generations don't work as hard as the boomers and the Zs have worked.
You're on your own on that one. I'm not going to get into that controversy with you, but I will say organizations that aren't constantly and consistently demonstrating care for their workforce mm-hmm. aren't able to retain them. And there's a war for talent. Doesn't matter what demographic you look at.
Right.
And think about the simple practice of saying thank you for telling us something as a leadership team so that we can fix a problem, right? If you say thank you to somebody today, you're probably going to get twice as many of those things that people think are important tomorrow.
Right.
That has just invaluable impact on, stronger organizational cultures, on employee engagement, participation, mindset. One of my favorite polls is the Gallup State of the American Workforce poll that comes out every couple of years, and they've been doing this for decades.
I don't think I've ever seen it.
Oh, it's global, and so therefore there's thousands of organizations, and they for many, many years in that poll they focused on the impact of engagement. In fact, there was even an engaged companies index of stocks that came out of that. What they're able to see is that organizations with more engaged workers have, and then you can just run down the list, less accidents, lower costs, higher quality, higher retention, higher productivity. In the case of healthcare, higher patient care satisfaction. And the numbers are staggering. It's like they're 14 times better than their peers once you have more engaged workers. How do you create more engaged workers? It's the frontline conversations that should be happening with employees.
And on the converse, I would imagine the data that you're collecting is pinpointing those managers, supervisors, shifts that aren't engaging with their workforce.
Yeah, again, my mind goes to not, our data should never be used to point out problems or what's wrong or what people aren't doing, but instead can shape how we better measure and how we improve, right? So think about the fact that now we have opportunities for conversations that are psychologically safe.
Right.
Right. They're not me coming to you saying, we have a problem, we need to talk. Instead, I might come to you and say, I'm really interested in how you're doing what you're doing because the data shows one thing and I think we can make it better for you.
Well, and also identifying those super efficient lines
Yeah.
that are overachieving consistently, sitting down with that individual and sharing best practices. How are you doing it?
If we make it easier for organizations, leaders, team leaders, production leaders to be more effective and efficient based on data, then they should have more time to spend with their people.
Awesome. Yeah. Anything else that you want to announce? Is there anything in the future that we should look to make you safe to accomplish? Or
things are never boring at Make You Safe. Every day, there's things to announce. Today, I just did social posts that the National Safety Council has awarded us, I guess, or recognized us as a finalist for something they call the Safety Innovation Challenge.
Awesome.
So we're one of 10 companies that now will compete to be the finalist, the winner. This revolves around identifying and reducing fatigue in workers. We have a very viable solution. As a matter of fact, last year we won that National Safety Innovation Challenge. So that's kind of cool. I was telling you earlier, about a year and a half, 2 years ago, CRC Press, a publisher, reached out to me and said, we've been watching Make You Safe. What you guys do is really impressive. I was like, wow, a publisher, that's great. And then they said, that there's no book out there, no reference material on using wearable technology for industry. And I said, yeah, I know. I've been doing this for a while now, and I wish there was one. Right.
Yeah.
And then they convinced me to write a book or be willing to write a book. So I got my two co-founders, Gabe Glynn and Mark Frederick, to contribute to the book. And recently that has come out. So it's sort of an academic, scientific publication. But there are some good stories in there, like we've been talking about today.
Awesome. And what is the name of the book?
Safety and Wearable Technology, Impact, Application, and Implementation in Industry.
Awesome. And we'll put the link in the show notes so folks can take a look at that if they are interested. And I thank you for all the work that you do to keep the industries that keep Iowa moving and profitable safe so that we can sustain this for years and decades and millennia to come.
Yeah. Thank you for your interest and for having me here to talk about it.
Thank you for tuning in to Made in Iowa. Subscribe, like, and share wherever you listen. Catch episodes weekly from the Iowa Everywhere studio on the BPC streaming network.